I've said it once and I'll say it again. One of my favorite things about music is having an album drop out of literally nowhere and just change everything, And I love when this happens. It's so rare when it happens, but man, when it does, really is something special. So, with that, let's dive into this album. Whoa, by an abstract illusion. And I keep thinking of this scene. Whoa. But it's not whoa, it's whoa. Oh, woe is me kind of thing. Anyway, getting lost in the weeds a little bit on this one. So an abstract illusion is a Swedish progressive metal band because all great things in terms of progressive metal come from Sweden. It is a trio of individuals that I am going to do my best at maybe pronouncing. Carl, Robert, and Christian. There we go. That's what you're getting. Carl on bass and guitars, Robert on vocals and keyboards, and Christian on drums. Now, this band got its start back in 2007 and went through, a few different members, a few different iterations that then finally landed on these three folks. Putting out their first full-length album back in 2016. Their first album of Illuminate the Path from 2016, I honestly haven't heard. They also have their 2014 EP, Atonement is Nigh, to kind of help grease the wheels, get them started. But this is, the first album from them that I have heard, which is Woe. A little bit of a concept album in that sense, really like diving in and looking at sorrow, looking at what it means to weep, what it means to be, I guess, not necessarily sad, but like the underlying factors within it. It's technically one full piece of music without any breaks, without any distortions in 7 different chapters, 7 different tracks. And I love a band when they do this. I love a band that comes in and says, yeah, here's one start to finish full project that's divided into tracks, very similar to something that Sleep would do, borrowing another very doom, very stoner metal aspect. Now, the overall flavor of progressive metal on here is a lot more of like the doom metal, a lot more of the atmospheric death metal on here. Really channeling in on that specific flavor. It's reminding me of some of the more soothing, slower, like heavy aspect of the Candlelight era from Opeth. Everything from Orchid all the way to My Arms, Your Hearse. Just the amount of flavors and the amount of feelings on here. Love how dark and how menacing a lot of this is. And I also love how very down tune everything is as well. Like it's almost employing a little bit of that kind of genty flavors and sounds without that big gent drop needed. Just in terms of like the atmosphere, in terms of setting mood. They really have distilled that whole mourning, that sorrow feel, that woe aspect of it. It reminds me of some of the darker paintings that like a Rembrandt would do in that sense. It's this single candle in a very dark lit, massive room in that sense. Talking about this album with individual tracks almost feels counterintuitive because this thing is meant to be consumed as a singular piece. But there are a few tracks that kind of rise to the top in terms of my listening ears, even though so many of these tracks are just so beautifully written, and I love the ebbs and flows of each one. I will say, Tear Down This Holy Mountain is probably my favorite moment on this, as well as In the Heavens Above, You Will Become a Monster. The 3rd and 6th track on here, they reach so high. They reach just so heavenly in that sense, even though they're dealing with such dour and such menacing concepts. And the one thing that I particularly love, because these are the 2 longer tracks off of the album, Tear Down This Holy Mountain being 11 minutes, and In the Heavens Above, You Will Become a Monster at 14 minutes. I love how they handle their transitions from very heavy, very brutal, very intense moments to very heavenly, very like soothing aspects. And it makes those very heavy, very hard hitting, very intense moments a lot more impactful, a lot more heavy when you contrast them to those softer moments. And in contrast, those heavenly, softer, more soothing and somber moments are that much more comforting. They're that much more warm when you compare them to those heavier, brutal, sharper moments. But let's talk about some of the breakdowns on this album. I love a good breakdown, and at the end of Tear Down This Holy Mountain has a beautiful, meaty, powerful breakdown that gets kind of, revised and played around with a lot on the fourth track of Prosperity, which is the highlight. I already said that Tear Down This Holy Mountain is kind of the highlight, but honestly, it's that mid track, that Prosperity, that fourth track that just hits so friggin' hard. And a lot of that is to that breakdown. It's that play out that the song ends with. I love the drumming style. The drummer on here, I already mentioned Christian, is such a powerhouse. He's such a force to be reckoned with, that as he is drumming out and he's got this master of the drums on it, it allows both Carl on the lead guitar there to follow it through. Like, it's reminding me of some of the very heavy aspects of Obzen from Meshuggah. Like, I'm getting bleed on there. That like that syncopated, very hard hitting rhythm section on there, blended with Robert's keyboards and heavenly vocals on there. It provides some of the best music I've heard all year. And the songs in between, the second track of Slaves, the sixth track of Bloomsticker Crams? The fifth track. And then the final track of This Torment Has No End, Only New Beginning. They're all great. They're all great. They keep the energy alive. They allow the tracks to kind of go from one point to the other. And the album itself ends, the last track, This Torment Has No End, Only New Beginnings. Oh boy, if you want to talk about bleak and dour outlooks on life, this track just hits you over the head, where it's like, there's really no endings. There's only new beginnings, which means it's just more upon more of torment, more upon more woe. And you want to be in the right mindset to listen to this, because if you're in the wrong one, you're going to have a pretty intense evening, a pretty intense day. But I love this ending, this final resolution on here, because it really doesn't resolve. It just keeps hitting you over the head. It keeps bashing you until you're like, okay, I'm done. And they're like, no, you're not. So this album just was one that kept giving to me. The more that the more I wanted from it, the more it gave back to me. And I couldn't help but fall in love with this album. I found myself looking forward to listening to it. Like, even though, I give albums 5, 6, 7, sometimes 12 listens to before I properly review it, this one I must have plunked at least 20 listens, because every time I looked forward to it. Every time I'm like, yes, I get one more good listen of this album before I have to review it. And I almost held off reviewing this album because I wanted to have more and more listens to it. So it's for that reason that I will say Woe by An Abstract Illusion is an album I absolutely love with my whole heart. These guys definitely knocked it out of the park. They really distilled that sorrow. They really distilled woe and suffering and that really death metal aspect in this album. And I applaud them. They really crafted something very, very special. And this will very easily be within my top 5 of the year. And that's all I've got for you guys on Woe by An Abstract Illusion. What did you guys think about this album? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Whatever you thought, please let me know by commenting down below. If you haven't listened to this album, I highly, highly recommend listening to it. If you're a fan of death metal, if you're a fan of, metal with a lot of teeth without being 100% brutal the entire time, I think you're really, really going to love this album. I highly recommend it. This is another Run Don't Walk. Absolutely love this album. So that's what I've got for you guys today. That's what I've got. I hope you guys enjoy. And oh shoot, how do I finish these guys off? Thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.